For over 1,000 years, the royal throne has been passed down through names etched in gold, and bloodlines guarded like sacred scripture. But what happens when a name is hidden? When the blood royal and true is forgotten? This is not a tale of crowns or wars. It's the story of a man the world never knew, a teacher, a son, a man whose DNA would unearth one of the most closely guarded royal secrets of the 20th century. A forgotten heir, a sealed royal file, and one photograph that would change everything. Julia Sinclair wasn't born into nobility, but she had a fascination with the royal world that bordered on obsession. As a senior archivist at the Royal Records Office in New, she was the gatekeeper of secrets, births, deaths, correspondences, sealed inquiries, some centuries old, some sealed until further notice. One Tuesday morning, as gray city mist clung to the windows, a brown envelope arrived at her desk. No return address. No markings. Inside was a photograph. A young boy, no older than 2, stood beside a man in a royal military uniform. The image was faded, but the man's features struck her instantly. It was unmistakable. He bore a haunting resemblance to Prince Havey, Duke of Gloucester, third son of King Gux V. On the back, written in careful cursive. He was never listed. Look to 1947. 1947 was a landmark year in royal history. A young Princess Elena had just married Philip Mountbatten. Newspapers called it a fairy tale. But Julia knew how history worked. The louder the fanfare, the deeper the silences behind it. She searched records, cross-referenced hospital logs, staff transfers, and incident reports from the royal household. One thing stood out. A name, Maxcaret Elwood. A lady-in-waiting abruptly reassigned from Clarence House to an estate in Yorkshire in the summer of 47. Unmarried. No next of kin. She had died in 2014, her estate modest. Except for one peculiar object. A silver locket engraved simply with the words, "When the truth is needed." Inside, a lock of fine blonde hair. And beneath it, a folded and signed note. Julia sent the hair for testing, not expecting much. But weeks later the results came back. A 98.7% match to the Windsor male bloodline. Michael Jameson lived in Derbyshire. A retired literature teacher, 73 years old, gentle, unassuming. He'd spent his life reading Shakespeare and planting roses. He had never been married. No children. No criminal record. In every way, a man forgotten by history. When Julia contacted him, he was skeptical, until she showed him the photo. His hand trembled. "I've seen this before," he whispered. He pulled out an old album, the corners frayed, pages browned with age. There it was. The same photograph. "My mother never said his name," Michael murmured. "Just said, he loved the uniform more than he loved her." Julia didn't speak. She didn't have to. They both knew. Back at the archive, Julia took a risk. Using revoked credentials and navigating a maze of clearance codes, she accessed a file long buried, Protocol Windsor 47. Its existence was denied even within palace walls. The document had been redacted almost entirely. Names blacked out. Lines blurred. But one sentence survived in handwritten ink. The line must remain unbroken. Discretion above all. The implications were staggering. If Prince Havey had fathered a child out of wedlock during the year his niece, the future queen, was being celebrated, the monarchy may have made a calculated decision. The child could never exist, not publicly. So he was erased. Silently. Systematically. Michael was devastated not because he had royal blood, but because he'd lived 73 years without knowing who he really was. He had questions that could never be answered. Who was his father to his mother? Why had she kept it secret? Had she been silenced or protected? Michael agreed to further DNA testing, this time against archived samples from the Duke of Gloucester's verified descendants. The results were conclusive. There was no doubt. Michael Jameson was the biological son of Prince Havey, Duke of Gloucester. Julia quietly published a peer-reviewed journal article, names redacted, entitled, "Royal Genetic Outliers, The Case of the Windsor Line." The paper didn't mention Michael by name. But the implications were clear. Whispers spread in elite circles. Some dismissed it as fiction. Others were rattled. The palace never commented. But within weeks, a senior genealogist who had corresponded with Julia was reassigned. And 2 months later, Julia received a letter. A legal cease and desist. From Buckingham Palace. They couldn't erase the DNA. But they could bury the noise. Michael never sought a title. No money. No land. He refused all media requests. even a lucrative offer from a major American news network. He said, "The truth belongs in quiet places, not on magazine covers." Before his passing in 2023, he wrote a memoir, never published, titled, The Quiet Inheritance. Only 5 copies exist. One of them was left anonymously at the doorstep of the Royal Archives. Julia found it 6 months after his death. The dedication read, "To the life I might have had, and the truth I finally met." If Michael had been recognized, he wouldn't have displaced the current royal line. He was never in the direct path of succession. But the symbolism would have been seismic. A teacher. A commoner. A forgotten heir whose only kingdom was a quiet cottage and rows of blooming roses. What if his story had been told in 1947? Would the crown have fallen? Or would the monarchy have become more human, more flawed, more real? Before she retired, Julia received one final anonymous envelope. Inside was another photo. This time of a young girl, around age 6, standing outside a country chapel in 1979. She had Michael's eyes. And beneath the photo, a note. The line didn't end. Was it a prank? Or was it the beginning of another secret? Another heir? Another bloodline? No one knows. But one thing is certain. In every royal house there are hidden rooms, forgotten names, and stories that only DNA can resurrect. Bloodlines don't lie. They wait, quietly, for history to catch up. This was the story of one man the monarchy erased, and science remembered. What other secrets hide beneath the colorful robes of empires? Join us next time as we uncover the illegitimate line that could claim the crown. Subscribe, share, and keep asking, whose blood built the throne?